This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
It's the Noon Report from Family Life, bringing a Christian worldview to what's happening in New York, Pennsylvania, across the country, and around the world. Weather with Kevin Williams, plus special features and reports with the Family Life News team. Now, here's what's happening.
Travel Ban 2.0. Good afternoon. Welcome aboard. President Trump is reinstating and expanding that controversial policy from his first term. This time, the sweeping new travel ban prevents foreigners from 12 countries from coming to America.
Nothing will stop us from keeping America safe.
The president says the ban, which takes effect Monday, is aimed at blocking dangerous foreign actors from gaining access to this country.
We will not let what happened in Europe happen to America.
The travel ban impacts foreigners from countries like Iran, Afghanistan, Libya, Sudan, and Haiti. A partial travel ban will be enforced in 7 other countries, including Cuba and Venezuela. Democratic Congressman Dan Goldman.
It's pretty consistent with what his quote-unquote immigration policy is, which is just essentially to keep anyone who's not white out of the country.
The president also last night signed an executive order barring most international students from entering the U.S. to study at Harvard. In Boulder, Colorado today, 45-year-old Mohammed Solomon is being arraigned on federal hate crime and terrorism charges. The Egyptian national accused of setting a dozen people on fire at a pro-Israel rally back on Sunday. Police say this guy used a homemade flamethrower to carry out the anti-Semitic attack. 2 Chinese nationals accused of trying to smuggle a dangerous fungus into this country.
We're talking about a fungus which DOJ is calling a potential bioterror threat.
ABC News Justice correspondent Pierre Thomas says one of the Chinese nationals is making a court appearance today in Detroit. The other is not yet in custody. Intelligence analyst Tom Winter.
It's a fungus that can be very toxic. It attacks crops, and it can be toxic to livestock as well as to human beings if it's ingested.
Police say the boyfriend-girlfriend scientist duo tried to smuggle that fungus into a lab at the University of Michigan. The FBI says the agro-terrorism was intended to target the nation's food supply. President Trump welcomed Germany's new Chancellor Friedrich Merz to the White House today. Those world leaders are discussing the ongoing war in Ukraine and expanded trade. Merz was sworn in last month. The remains of 2 Israeli-American hostages have now been returned to Israel after an overnight raid by Israeli special forces. They went into Gaza and recovered the couple who were murdered by Hamas in the October 2023 terror attack.
The bodies of Judy Weinstein and Gad Haggai were taken to Gaza after they were killed at their kibbutz by Palestinian gunmen on October 7th. Israel says the war won't end until all 56 hostages left in Gaza, both dead and alive, are returned home.
Robert Berger in Jerusalem. President Trump is looking into the actions taken by his predecessor, Joe Biden, in the final days of his administration. We get more from Lucas Tomlinson at Fox News.
President Trump has ordered an investigation into Joe Biden's use of the auto pen as the president alleges his predecessor's aides hid his cognitive decline.
The ex-president's responded to the critics, saying he knew what he was doing and says any suggestion to the otherwise is ridiculous and false, end quote. The former press secretary for Joe Biden is switching parties as she gets ready to release a new book on the final months of the Biden presidency. Karine Jean-Pierre says she's no longer a Democrat. She's an independent now.
I think we need to stop thinking in boxes and think outside of our boxes and not be so partisan.
RNC strategist Jason Miller.
Laugh all you will at KJP. She knows to run, not walk away from the Democrats.
KJP's new book is due out in the fall. It's entitled A Look Inside a Broken White House. Health Secretary Robert Kennedy Jr. investigating the side effects of the abortifacient mifepristone. He wants the FDA to launch a thorough review of what that drug does to pregnant women. There are studies that show 10% of all the women who use mifepristone will experience serious serious adverse reactions. Do-it-yourself abortions now account for more than half of all the abortions that are done every year in this country. The Edmonton Oilers drew first blood in the Stanley Cup Finals last night, defeating the Florida Panthers on their home ice north of the border.
There's McDavid.
What a game. The Oilers eking it out in overtime 4-3, the final. It's been 32 years, by the way, since a team from Canada has won the Stanley Cup. And the NBA Finals tip off tonight with the Oklahoma City Thunder hosting the Indiana Pacers. Neither of those teams has ever won a world championship before. Well, OKC technically has, but back in 1979, they were the Seattle Supersonics. Still to come on the Noon Report for Thursday. Cyber charters under the gun. Cell phone ban starts today, and stealing grease. Cooking grease in Amherst.
This is meteorologist Ken McKinley. Still rather warm this afternoon with temperatures in many areas getting above 80 but staying in the 70s over western portions of New York and Pennsylvania. Some showers and thunderstorms moving in as a more unsettled pattern develops. Full forecast details coming your way in about 10 minutes.
All right, Ken, we'll see you then. Let's check the stories making news across New York and Pennsylvania. A new distracted driving law took effect today in Pennsylvania. Anyone caught texting or talking on the phone while driving will get pulled over and issued a warning citation. Starting next year, you'll get fined $50. Pennsylvania State Trooper Bill Evans.
We're hoping that this law, and we do believe it will, cut down on the number of crashes we respond to because people are, making more responsible decisions while they drive.
Ricky Hunsinger of Montrose, PA, is all for this new distracted driving law. He says digital devices have become a real danger on the road.
I'm very happy that it's coming into effect. You know what I mean? I think they ought to enforce it more than what they are. A lot of people getting killed and stuff like that. You know what I mean? I think there's a lot of accidents caused because of it.
Hands-free devices are still allowed. Tickets for violating this law will not result in any extra points on your driver's license. There's a healthy debate in Harrisburg these days on whether to cut funding to cyber charter schools. These are public schools that are privately run. The students take online classes from the comforts of home. Democrats argue there's not enough accountability or transparency when it comes to cyber charters. Peter Schweier chairs the House Education Committee.
The largest cyber school in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania has a 4.7% proficiency rating in mathematics. That's what we're paying for.
But Republicans argue cutting funding and capping tuition at cyber charters is nothing more than an assault on school choice. House GOP leader Jesse Topper.
Let me be very clear. If we destroy cyber charters in Pennsylvania, the high school dropout rate will skyrocket. And where will those students go?
About 65,000 students are currently enrolled in cyber charter schools all across Pennsylvania. New York dairymen traveled to Albany this week to voice their opposition to a bill that would limit the number of cows they are legally allowed to have on their dairy farms. Ray Dykeman runs a farm in Fultonville, New York.
To say that I'm a frustrated dairy farmer in New York State would be an understatement. I don't understand how a bill like this even gets remotely this far.
Republican Assemblyman Chris Tay.
Capping a farm at 700 cows is not just arbitrary, it's ignorant. It punishes efficiency, it punishes innovation, and worst of all, it punishes family farms who are trying to survive.
Downstate Democrats argue cows contribute to polluted waterways. Still, the cow limit legislation unlikely to see any action before lawmakers go home for the summer next week. An invasive plant is spreading like wildfire along the shores of the Buffalo River. Family Life's Dee Haley says it is toxic and could harm you if you come in contact with it.
The Erie County Parks Department is warning the community about an invasive plant in western New York. Several giant hogweed plants have been located along the shores of Seneca Bluffs Natural Habitat Park. According to officials at Cornell University, exposure to the sap can cause serious serious chemical burns and scarring. Leaves on giant hogweed are large, lobed, and alternately arranged on ridged, hollow stems that are mostly green with purple blotches throughout. Erie County is working with the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation to manage it. If you believe you have hogweed, do not touch it and call the DEC Hogweed Hotline at 845-256-3111. Dee Haley, Family Life News.
All right, the Hogweed Hotline. Thank you, Dee. A new strain of COVID is making the rounds, but health experts caution it is not as virulent as previous iterations of the coronavirus.
When you see a variant take off like this, like a new variant, it is more contagious. And this one is more contagious. What we're not seeing in the United States or globally is it's not causing more severe disease. So keep in mind, the virus changing, totally expected.
New York Health Commissioner Dr. James McDonald reminds folks to practice good hygiene and stay away from others if you're not feeling well. Rite Aid stores are closing their doors, and shoppers like Art Fennon in North Syracuse disappointed by that news.
I was always happy coming here. There was always deals, so that's what I liked about it. You could find a deal.
Rite Aids have been around for more than 6 decades, and with their departure, some folks are wondering where they'll get their prescriptions filled. Frank Wyatt tells Spectrum News he relies on Rite Aid to fill his sister's meds.
My sister had to switch her pharmacy like 3 or 4 different times in the last 2-3 years. So now we got to switch again and find another place to pick up our prescriptions.
The drugstore chain filed for bankruptcy last month for the second time in as many years. 2 men have been arrested for stealing cooking grease from a restaurant in Amherst, New York. Police found these guys behind that restaurant on Transit Road with a box truck. They were in possession of 1,400 pounds of used cooking grease. Cooking oil theft is a growing problem due to its value in being repurposed for fuel. A Danville, Pennsylvania man recently completed a 2-year quest to climb a tree in every county in the Commonwealth. There are 67 counties in the Commonwealth. Ag teacher Van Wagner says it all started when he climbed a tree in Montour County.
And after I did it, I thought, wow, I could do Columbia County, and I could do, like Homing County. I started thinking of like local counties, and then I just thought, let's just do the whole state. No one's ever done it.
Of course, the big question is, why did he do it?
It was a journey of trying to both celebrate all the great things about our forest here in Pennsylvania, but I also wanted to raise attention that there are some real concerns facing our forest.
Wagner says his favorite climbs were the ones he did with his sons. He's already gotten started on his next quest, which is to climb a tree in every state in these United States. We got sports next. It's the 2-minute drill on the Family Life Noon Report.
Good afternoon, I'm Randy Snavely. Bob, the New York Mets are happy Pete Alonso decided to stick around this season. He homered twice last night and drove in 5 to lead the Amazons past the Dodgers 6-1. The Mets have now won 9 of their last 11 as Griffin Canning spun 6 shutout innings. He moves to 6-2 on the season. In the Bronx, the Guardians silenced the Yankees bats, shutting them out 4-0. The Pirates' Mike Burrow struck out 6 over 5 1/3 innings and didn't allow any runs. Neither did the 3 relievers that followed. And Pittsburgh won a 3-0 decision over the Astros. The Phillies have now dropped 5 of 6 after Toronto's Alejandro Kirk drove a walk-off single off the wall to give the Blue Jays a 2-1 victory. Elsewhere in the American League, the Bo Sox outslugged the Angels 11-9. The Rays edged Texas 5-4. Detroit also won by a 5-4 score over the White Sox. The Mariners fell to Baltimore 3-2, and the Twins down the A's 6-1. In the National League, the Rockies edged the Marlins 3-2. The Brew Crew all over Cincinnati 9-1. The Nats shut out the Cubs 2-0. Arizona eked out a 2-1 victory over the Braves, and the Giants were 6-5 winners over the Padres. The Stanley Cup Finals got underway in Edmonton last night, and the Oilers did not disappoint the home crowd. In overtime, they defeated Florida 4-3. Leon Draisaitl scored the game winner with 30 seconds left on a power play. It's his 3rd overtime winning goal during these playoffs. Sam Bennett scored twice for the Panthers. That is a look at sports.
All right, Randy Man, thank you. Still to come on the Noon Report, new Trump travel ban, baptizing America, and why Christian media matters.
Welcome to Breakpoint, a daily look at an ever-changing culture through the lens of unchanging truth. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet. A recent post on Nextdoor asked this question: what's one thing you did for your children that you would wholeheartedly recommend to other parents? Well, my policy is almost to never post on social media, but I was tempted to reply, get married, and if at all possible, stay married. Of course, the decision to stay married is one that has to be made by both parties in a marriage. So in many situations, a mom or dad will find themselves divorced against their will. Still, the normalization of divorce was driven by an oft-repeated myth in Western culture, especially America: the kids will be fine, and that kids need happy parents more than they need married ones. Statistically, however, children of divorce are not fine, and we now have even more evidence to prove it. A new study published at the National Bureau of Economic Research is the largest ever of its kind, tracking over 1 million children of divorce for over 50 years. And the results are staggering. According to researchers Andrew Johnson, Maggie Jones, and Nolan Pope, the average household income immediately after divorce is less than half that of married parents, and it never fully recovers. Even as adults, those who are subjected to an early childhood divorce will make less money on average, about 13% less by their late 20s. And according to the authors, this loss is comparable to losing a year of education or growing up in a lower income neighborhood. Children of divorce also have a 60% higher risk of teen pregnancy and a sharp and persistent increased risk of childhood mortality. They spend much more time separated from at least one parent, with an average distance of 100 miles between either mom or dad. Such children have a 40% higher risk of serving jail time, are half as likely to attend college, and have a 45% higher risk of early death as adults compared with kids whose parents stayed married. Now, none of these findings are particularly new. Enormous amounts of prior research also associates divorce with long-term negative outcomes for kids. What's new here is the powerful evidence that divorce causes these negative outcomes. As Grant Bailey noted at the Institute for Family Studies, critics of so-called scary divorce statistics typically object that correlation's not causation. In other words, just because children of divorce are statistically poorer, live riskier lives, get less education, and go to jail more often, does not mean that divorce causes these issues. But this new study simply puts that objection to rest by comparing not just 1 million sibling groups, that's a huge sample size, over 50 years, a clearly sufficient amount of time, but also comparing siblings within families. These authors were able to isolate the effects of divorce in a new way, especially when it comes to younger children. As expected, divorce proved to be a psychological and social shock to young children in a way that nothing else was prior to the divorce. According to Bailey, we now have convincing evidence, and I quote, that the negative outcomes associated with divorce are not merely from underlying household issues, but from the act of separation itself, end quote. And the authors of the study added, and I quote, again, the magnitude of these effects underscores how divorce can dramatically reshape children's outcomes, and does so potentially for life. Now again, it's tragic when a parent is co-opted into a divorce against their will. And in those cases, families and churches and communities have to find ways to step in and add support whenever possible. One way that the rest of us can help them is by learning to collectively value marriage again, for all that it is, especially all that it is for the children. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet with Breakpoint.
Thank you, John. Outside we go. Ken McKinley.
Good afternoon. We'll see clouds advancing across the area from west to east as we head through this afternoon. Some showers and thunder showers moving in as well. Temperatures still fairly warm, although not quite as warm as the past couple of days in most locations. It'll remain unsettled as we head through tonight and tomorrow with some more shower activity from time to time. A couple of thunder showers again possible tomorrow. Temperatures tomorrow a bit cooler than today, generally in the 70s, although some low 80s still possible over portions of Pennsylvania. Showers will tend to wind down later tomorrow night, and we'll see some sun coming out in most areas on Saturday, starting off the weekend with a fairly pleasant day and temperatures in the 70s. Sunday will will feature some sunshine as well, but clouds will be moving in from the south and west during the afternoon, with rain arriving over western New York, western and central Pennsylvania during the afternoon hours on Sunday.
Ken, thank you. This is the Noon Report. I'm your host, Bob Price, and here's what's happening. Thursday, the 5th of June, citing security risks, President Trump has banned travel to this country from 12 other countries. They include Iran, Afghanistan, Haiti, Somalia, and Sudan.
We cannot have open migration from any country where we cannot safely and reliably vet and screen those who seek to enter the United States.
Foreigners from 7 countries will have partial restrictions, including Cuba and Venezuela. The travel bans take effect Monday. The commander-in-chief ramping up his fight with Harvard. Last night, he signed an executive order banning international students from entering this country so they can attend Harvard. Harvard graduate Jonas Dew.
The collateral damage is very strong here. It is very unfortunate that a lot of students who have nothing to do with a lot of these issues that we're seeing are going to be impacted by these changes.
More than a quarter of Harvard's overall student body comes from other countries. President Trump welcomed the new Chancellor of Germany to the White House today. Friedrich Merz took office just a month ago. The world leaders will discuss the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine. A bail hearing is happening today in Detroit for one of the 2 Chinese nationals accused of smuggling a toxic fungus into this country. Police say these scientists at the University of Michigan are Communist Party loyalists. Asian affairs expert Gordon Chang.
We have these very disturbing ties between American institutions of higher learning and China. And we need to break that because obviously the dangers are there, as we see with this fungus case.
Police say the pair attempted to smuggle the fungus into a lab at the University of Michigan. The FBI says the agro-terrorism was intended to target our food supply. It's arraignment day in Boulder, Colorado for the 45-year-old Egyptian national accused of setting people on fire at a pro-Israel rally. Police say Mohammed Solomon used a makeshift flamethrower to target 15 people in that anti-Semitic attack.
At least 3 victims still remain hospitalized, recovering. As for Solomon, following his court date today, he'll be back in court next Friday. If convicted, he faces more than 700 years for the state charges and life in prison for the federal charges. As it stands right now, the FBI tells me they have executed additional search warrants as this investigation deepens.
NBC's Morgan Chesky in Boulder, Colorado today. Israeli Defense Forces carried out special operations overnight to recover the bodies of 2 Israeli-American hostages inside Gaza. The BBC's Barbara Platt-Usher has more.
The Israeli military has issued a statement saying that it recovered the bodies of these 2 hostages, Judy Lynn Weinstein Haggai and Gad Haggai, in Khan Yunis, which is in the southern part of the Gaza Strip. Now, they were killed on October 7th during that Hamas attack in southern Israel.
Hamas is still holding 56 hostages. A third of them are believed to still be alive. Israel says the war will not end until all of them are returned. Former Biden White House press secretary Karine Jean-Pierre is leaving the Democratic Party. The presidential spokeswoman dropped that political bombshell by announcing she's now an independent.
What I have decided to do, and I really have thought long and hard about this, is to follow my own compass. It's about looking outside of boxes, not just always being in a partisan stance.
The switch in party allegiance comes as KJP gets ready to publish a new book in the fall about her final months in the Biden White House. National religious broadcasters have teamed up with Barna researchers to release a new landmark study on the state of Christian media in the year 2025. What they found is this: more than 60% of all adults in this country consume Christian media in some form at least once a week. Also, most Americans say they trust Christian media, 2/3 calling it valuable. The top reason people are engaging in Christian media is for encouragement, according to that study from Barna today. You're tuned in to the Noon Report for Thursday on Family Life.
you straight to the voices on the front lines of religious battlegrounds. I'm news anchor Sarah Harnish, and with me today, Pastor Mark Francy. We're talking Baptize America. You are hoping to break the record this weekend with the largest number of water baptisms on a single day in American history. What's going on?
June 8th, this coming Sunday, Pentecost Sunday, will be uniting the church interdenominationally from coast to coast, every state in America, as well as several other nations like Puerto Rico and Brazil, and even Baptized Canada has, I think, about 60 churches signed up so far. But we're looking to unite the church under the one thing that we all agree on as believers, which is the Great Commission to go make disciples of all nations, baptizing them. And we're hoping that we'll see maybe upwards of 100,000 get baptized. We're going to start with America, but we believe it's going to go to the ends of the earth.
Tell me how it works.
Well, you can go to the website, baptizeamerica.com, sign your church up to be a host church, and the goal is to get people that are interested in taking their next step with God. I know a lot of people, they don't understand everything about Christianity, but they seem to understand that the birth of Jesus was good at Christmas, the resurrection of Jesus was good at Easter. If they show up to one of these churches, they're going to hear a clear gospel presentation at every church signed up. They're going to hear an explanation of what water baptism is, and we're going to get them started on the journey of discipleship being connected to a local church.
There has been mass revival. We're not just seeing it on Huntington Beach in California, but on college campuses in other countries like South Korea. What is going on?
I think God determines and chooses when these windows of grace are opened up. There's been a darkness lingering over our land, and historically revival doesn't come out of times of prosperity and peace. It usually comes out of unrest and turbulence. COVID really was the perfect cocktail of darkness and wickedness and so many things that were divisive. I think it woke up a sleeping giant that the church is really beginning to rally. And I think God's responded to the prayers of the church these last 5 years.
Why do the largest synchronized baptism in history? What message does that send?
The prayer of Jesus Christ in John 17 was that the disciples would become one as he was one with the Father and with the Holy Spirit. I think that when we start seeing the church unite, obviously there's differences and distinctions, and it takes all types of churches, all types of denominations to reach all types of people. There is something in unity, sending a message to the world that maybe the one thing we can all agree on outside of the empty tomb and the virgin birth is the fact that we're supposed to go into the world, preach the good news of Jesus Christ, and to start discipleship with getting people water baptized.
The movement is massive. I mean, more than 1,000 churches united, and correct me if that number is too low, because I know this is growing. 23,850 baptisms. What a commission.
Right now we're having some days 50 to 100 churches sign up to get baptized. I'm a local church pastor. I was not looking for another job to do, but if you're a pastor, a leader of a church listening, you want to sign your church up to be a part of it. Our heart is to help lost people get into your church, hear the good news, get water baptized, and get connected. Our church has grown by about 300 people just since our last big baptism that we did. We have the proof in California of churches growing by 5, 10, 15% after they promoted getting these people into their church to hear the good news and get water baptized.
Why does baptism matter to God?
I think it's our way of identifying his death, his burial, and his resurrection. I think that Jesus Christ came to the earth the first time on the heels of a national water baptism movement with John the Baptist. There's something in baptism that's identifying in death, burial, and resurrection, but also Jesus washing us and making us clean. Baptism is one of the things that Jesus commanded us to go out and to do, so we're excited to be a part of helping churches do that.
We're seeing record numbers of people reading the Bible, record numbers of men engaging. YouVersion is about to cross 1 billion people reading God's Word digitally. There are these mass baptisms that are happening, and this is after decades of Christianity, definitely in America, being the underdog. Why the boldness all of a sudden?
That's a great question, Sarah. I just think that when darkness gets dark enough, it starts to wake up the light inside of the church. Jesus said that we're supposed to be called a city on a hill, that we're salt. Salt seasons, it preserves. I think salt also makes people thirsty. There's something about what God's doing that's making the world thirsty for more of him. I'm excited. I think that we'll look back back on in 20 years and call the roaring 20s of God moving and breathing and reviving not only states and nations, but I think to the nations of the earth. The best is yet to come for sure.
Is there a baptism story that's touched you?
Oh, man. I don't think we have enough time on this program to talk about all of them. One cool story was a gentleman in our church showed up on a Sunday, ended up giving his life to Jesus a few weeks afterwards, but was a part of bringing down organized crime in America. Sammy the Bull, they're making a movie about his life. Sammy has been a part of 19 murders, lived a really dark life, and now is in the sunset years of his life and made a conscious, willful decision that I want to become a Jesus Christ follower and believer. Sometimes as a preacher, we say the love of God and the grace of God is accessible to everybody, but to actually be able to sit down and look into someone's eyes that's lived a life that's been that dark intentionally, and now making a conscious decision that the grace of Jesus Christ is still strong enough, his love is still great enough to give even someone like Sammy a second chance. Seeing someone go from the mafia to the message of Jesus Christ has been a beautiful story of redemption.
Why does baptism mean so much to you?
Well, I was changed by obeying the voice of Jesus to get baptized. About a year after I gave my life to Jesus, I finally took the next step to get water baptized. I can attest there was a grace that I stepped into the day I got water baptized. There was some lingering sin, lingering habits that didn't really lose their grip on me until I got into the waters of baptism. So I've lived this out. It's been a practical thing that I've seen change my life, and I think it changes everybody else's.
Learn more at baptize.org.
All right, great interview. Thank you, Sarah. That's Pastor Mark Francy with Baptize America on this week's edition of Faith Under Fire. You can subscribe, listen to, and share Faith Under Fire along with all our original podcasts. Just go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or familylife.org. Before we go, one more time to the Weather Center. Ken McKinley.
Good afternoon. We'll see clouds advancing across the area from west to east as we head through this afternoon. Some showers and thunder showers moving in as well. Temperatures still fairly warm, although not quite as warm as the past couple of days in most locations. It'll remain unsettled as we head through tonight and tomorrow with some more shower activity from time to time. A couple of thunder showers again possible tomorrow. Temperatures tomorrow a bit cooler than today, generally in the 70s, although some low 80s still possible over portions of Pennsylvania. Showers will tend to wind down later tomorrow night, and we'll see some sun coming out in most areas on Saturday, starting off the weekend with a fairly pleasant day and temperatures in the 70s. Sunday will feature some sunshine as well, but clouds will be moving in from the south and west during the afternoon, with rain arriving over western New York, western and central Pennsylvania during the afternoon hours on Sunday.
All right, Ken, thank you. Finally at noon, celebrating America's #2 condiment. It's National Ketchup Day, don't you know? Correspondent Bree Tennis.
The average American consumes 3 bottles of ketchup every year. The modern sauce, basically pureed tomatoes, little vinegar, and some sweetener, but it actually originated in Asia as a fermented fish sauce. For today, it's all about topping. Your French fries, your hamburger, your meatloaf, your eggs. You'll find a bottle in 97% of American homes, but there's about 7% of us who never touch this stuff. I'm Bree Tennis.
Not on a hot dog anyway. Thank you, Bree. By the way, the #1 condiment in America is salsa. It has been since 1992. And that's our world. The world we live in. Thursday, the 5th of June. I'm Bob Price. Family Life News.
You've been listening to the Noon Report, heard weekdays on Family Life. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.